Hi everyone, Erin Bell here, and today I want to talk a little bit about finding good scholarly research for our final project this semester. Now, most of you should have had a Com 1 and Com 2 course at some point in your college career, so this should be a review for you. However, I know that you may have had those courses a couple of years ago. So it's really important to find good scholarly research for all of our classes in all of our college courses. This means moving beyond just a simple Google search and using whatever article pops up. The reason that is a problem is .com articles often don't have writers. We often don't know when they're written or who they're written by, which makes them less credible as a source. In the education field as well as other fields, it's super important that our research is reliable and credible. So we have to make sure that we're finding it in the right spaces. So I just want to remind you, we looked at some of this in the first part of the semester, but let's go back and see where we can find good scholarly sources here at Baker College. So if I go to guides.baker.edu from home, it's going to take me to our research guides homepage, and there are a lot of places that we can find good scholarly research here. We have a section here that's called Find Books and eBooks, but right now I'm going to go to Find Articles and Databases, okay? And databases are basically an online hub for holding research, okay? And I'm going to start with one of these general interdisciplinary databases and see what happens. I'm going to go to EBSCO. I like that one, so I'm going to click on that. And if you are working from home, you may need to include or use your library card number. Now that number is on the back of your Baker College ID. So you'll find that it's a long number and you have to enter that in. But today I'm going to do a search thinking about your final project in mind. I'm going to look up maybe fairy tales. Fairy tales. I'm going to put that in quotation marks though, so it looks for both of those words together. Fairy tales, and I think gender. I'm interested to think about how I might change a fairy tale based on our capstone project, right? That's the prompt. It says, how would you revise a fairy tale? And I might revise it to be less sexist and more empowering for women. So that's where I'm going to start. Fairy tales and gender. I do my search, and lo and behold, I do in fact have a number of scholarly sources that come up. I know they're scholarly because they're labeled academic journal. So this is actually all very good information for me. However, one thing I might want to do next is say, well, this starts in 1987. That's kind of old. That actually might be older than some folks in the class. So we're going to move that up to make sure that my research is a little more current. We'll say between the last 10 years or so, okay? And so then I notice, however, that I don't actually have access to all of these articles. So another thing that I can click here is just limit to full text. If I click that here now, I'm only going to get articles that I can get to right away. So if I'm interested in any of these, I can go ahead and click on them. Children's Reflection on Gender Equality in Fairy Tales. This is from Rwanda, but I still might find this interesting to my work. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the PDF full text, and that's going to take me to the full entire scholarly journal article. Okay, so there's an abstract, it's got keywords, and those are some of the markers of a good scholarly article. The other neat thing about using the databases is I can click on this Google Drive button here, right here on the right, and this will save to my Google Drive as long as I'm logged in. This is really important because you want to make sure that you save all the articles you're using. And then there's some other neat tools here as well. I could also, if I wanted to, email it to myself. Sometimes I do that. But then if I go down to the Cite button right here, I can actually create an APA reference. This would be on my reference page. And I know for some of us, creating these APA citations might be a little rusty for us. So this is a really neat tool here using EBSCO host, okay? So I did pretty well using EBSCO. That was a pretty good first start. I could also try this Gale power search. A lot of my students like the Gale database right here. I could look up some information here, but what might really make sense for our class is, again, I'm just on the home page of our guide, so I can go to guides.baker.edu just to show you where I'm at again. Guides.baker.edu. I'm going to find articles and databases, but I want a more tailored search because we're talking about children's literature today. So it would make sense then to go to the section of databases that have to do with education, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to click right here to education databases, and I want to now delve into the idea of picture books, right? There's another prompt about picture books changing over the last few centuries, and I'm going to do picture books, and I'm going to do literacy. I'm interested, oops, I have to spell those terms right though. And I want to see what happens here. So I'm going to do a search here. And this is searching ERIC, which is one of the premier educational resources. And again, this seems kind of neat. It says stretching STEM using picture books to connect STEM and literacy, picture books and emotional literacy. So I'm getting a lot of good research here. If I wanted to, once again, this is already limited to 2001, but I could move this up a little bit so I just get research from the last 10 years or so. And I find some pretty neat stuff. Now, I want to get into this picture books and emotional literacy, so I'm going to click on that and see where that takes me. Now, if I want the full PDF, I'm just going to click on that. That takes me to the entire article. So once again, here I am. This is a little bit of a shorter article. It's 7 pages, but I think I can get some good information out of it. And this, once again, gives me the choice to save this to my Google Drive, which I totally recommend for all research projects. And then I can hit the Cite button. And once again, it takes me to an APA reference. So that is a really neat feature that a lot of students really appreciate, especially if they're struggling with trying to figure out and remember how to cite APA format in their essays. Another quick place I want to take you to with our guides is there is a guide for every class that we have here at Baker College. And we did look at this early in the semester, but I just want to remind you that there is a guide, in fact, for our class. So if you go to guides.baker/edu 2210, that's the code for this class, it takes you to some interesting sources and references for the class. Now, I'm working on building this up a little bit more, but you can see that there are some different books here. There's websites that can be helpful too. Sometimes you kind of have to click through, but it actually gives you book lists and things like that. If you've been struggling finding examples, I know a lot of you talked about, well, I'm stuck at home and I don't have that many books. This could be helpful for you as well. So it takes you through some different websites, poetry, things like that. We're moving on now to realistic fiction. And so there is one example here, although I wouldn't really call Mama and Daddy Bear's divorce super realistic in that it's bears, but again, this might be helpful to you as well. So this is another helpful resource for you as you kind of finish up your coursework. Last note, guides.baker.edu and this APA help. Now, if you notice, for your capstone project, there is an emphasis placed on using APA formatting and style correctly. And to be honest, that's something that all of us in the class need to review, but I want to make sure that you use this appropriately. And so there is, in fact, an APA template here in Microsoft Word. You can download that and open that up. And this basically helps you provide the formatting for your essay. It kind of has everything the way it should be. This is what a reference page should look like. Notice that it has this proper indentation and style. So you all might want to go ahead and use that if you're struggling with APA formatting, if you haven't done it in a while. The other thing that's kind of neat in this APA help is that it gives you an example of how to make your in-text citations. I'm assuming you're going to have a lot of in-text citation in this final essay because you're going to be citing and quoting from a number of different books. You'll also be using research. So this in-text citation is going to be helpful as well. But once again, this should all be reviewed to you. You guys have done this in Comp or 1010 and 1020. You're just going to have to go back and kind of remind yourself of how to do this properly. So I'll be in class in our Google Hangout later, but I thought this quick video would be helpful for anyone that can't make it tonight. Stay well, and we'll focus on this just a bit more in class later.